Hey there everyone, and welcome to this week's market update. Last week in El Paso County, we saw a total of 211 new listings hit the market. We saw 62 price increases, 111 price decreases, 54 homes that went back on market. That's homes that were under contract that didn't go all the way to close for one reason or another. And we also saw a total of 459 homes that sold that closed out completely. So this week we did see the total number of new listings go back over 200. So that's been consistent with the past couple weeks. It's still a little bit low for what our buyers need, for what our market's kind of looking for, but it's back up to that normal level there. Also, again, this week, like we saw last week, we saw the number of price decreases kind of come down. It's been closer to 130, 150 for the past several months. We're seeing that come closer to that 100 portion. We're seeing the market tighten up just a little bit. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing price decreases become less and less common. And with our total number sold of over 450, again, we're seeing strong sales that are happening again this week. Also, last week we saw the days on market drop to 13 days on average. And that's still in about the normal range that we've been seeing the days on market, anywhere from 14 days to 16 days. The 13 days, we're starting to see that market tighten up a little bit. We'll see if it goes closer towards that 13 days or if we start getting back up towards 17, 18 for the fall and for the winter market. Last week, the Federal Reserve announced a few changes that it was going to make on its internal policies, how it's going to adjust interest rates and try to influence inflation in our country. The Federal Reserve is going to be targeting about 2% annual inflation, but what they're going to be basing that off of is a weighted average over time. So if they see lower inflation for a certain period of time, they're going to allow, by adjusting interest rates for higher inflation in later years, to kind of average out in their approach, in their minds, to try to keep a stable economy, to try to keep stable inflation. Another one of the major changes they're going to be looking at is they're not going to necessarily factor in the strength of the job market and how they're adjusting interest rates. And by that I mean, in the past, when the country's had a very strong job market, they started to adjust interest rates up to kind of keep inflation lower. But moving forward, what they're going to do is they're going to be using a number of different metrics, seeing where we're at as inflation and growth as a whole, and adjust more towards that where they want to keep interest rates. It's because of these policy changes, a number of other things that they've said so far, that analysts are starting to think that we're going to have lower interest rates for mortgages, for personal loans, for even credit cards for the foreseeable future. Also, the CDC put in an order last week saying until the end of the year, till December 31st, that they're not going to allow for evictions for people who are unable to pay rent. Now, this is pertaining mainly to any landlords or any borrowers that own rental properties that are backed by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, anything that's a government-based loan. Now, this is an order that's been put out by the CDC, and it is backed by our current administration. But it's really going to be up to our state officials, our county officials, to see how this is enforced and to see how this is put together along the way up until the end of the year. And just a side note on that, in our current marketplace in El Paso County, we've seen a very, very small delinquency rate. Less than 0.5% of people in our community have not been able to pay rent. The property managers I've talked to who managed anything from 100 doors all the way up to 800 doors, I've been asking them constantly, keeping track of them constantly, and the number of delinquencies is so few and far in between. And most of the delinquencies that they have had, which is less than 0.5%, have caught back up by now. But that concludes this week's market update. If you have any questions about anything that's going on in the marketplace, anything that you're curious about, if you're curious about the neighborhood that you live in or one that you might be looking at in the future, feel free to send me a message, send me a text, or even give me a call. That concludes this week's market update, and thank you for watching.